How's it going? It's the Wolf. Wolf is back. Talk about a couple of books. This time it's actually some of the books that I've read just recently. I'm doing a lot of traveling recently and had a lot of time on planes to just kind of pump out the pages, which has been really cool. Just a few of them here, and we're just going to get straight into it basically. We got this one here, John Farris, Son of the Endless Night. I think this is maybe a second edition. It's a New English Library. Might be 87 or 88 or something like that, I'll tell you. Not that it matters, but I like to talk about these things anyway. Yeah. So, yeah, originally it was first published 85. This is an 87. But this wouldn't be news to some people whoever may happen to watch and know John Farris. He's got The Fury and all heads turn when Hunt comes or something like that, you know. Yeah, Nightfall, Catacombs. I was really excited about reading some John Farris because his books always seemed to look very appealing to me, and he seemed like he was up on the higher realms of horror writers, and all his books were never slack. You know, he's big, 500, 600, 700 pages and stuff. But this one here, Son of the Endless Night, for some reason, I held it on a pedestal. I looked at it and I thought, this looks like a juggernaut of a book. One day I'm going to try and read this. Just the same as I kind of held it up there with, where are we? Funny enough, from a different realm, and what I talked about in a recent video, like Isabel. I mean, I held Isabel right up there because, it was fucking rare. And it was just a one-off print. And when I read it, finally, which I was scared to read it, I'm going to get this thing shrink-wrapped, I reckon, at one time, and preserve it forever because it's very expensive. But, it was just like when I read Isabel, I was not disappointed personally. I thought it was an excellent story. It's same as with John Farris. I'm just going to adjust myself a bit. I've got my my computer on my rubber drum practice pad and giving it a run. It's a little bit shaky. But anyways, Son of Endless Night by John Farris. It's got all these blurbs from Peter Straub, Peter Benchley, Stephen King, all that, all these people, all these, newspapers and magazine companies all praising this book and saying that it's epic. And the truth is that it is. It's based in a place called Vermont, where you got Richard Devon and his girlfriend Karen. I can't remember her surname. Sorry, I'm trying to do a fucking video and I can't even remember people's names. They go out on a ski trip. Richard Devon knew this little girl named Polly, and Polly used to live with her father, who was a caretaker at one of the ski resorts there where they're staying. And he has this feeling he's getting these, messages coming to him mentally or almost like telepathically or something like that in his bad dreams that Polly's in trouble, and he just feels so compelled to try and find Polly and try and help her out. Turns out that, he thinks she's at the hotel, but she's not. Turns out she actually belongs to a cult of people who, are kind of only really briefly mentioned in the story. They don't linger around for long. These cults suck Richard in, and the result of him being sucked in by this cult is that he gets possessed by a demon, Zorak Baltag to be exact, who apparently is the son of the Endless Night. And Richard goes out, finds his girlfriend Karen hooking up with an old boyfriend, some big tank jock type cunt. Pardon my language. And so he beats her to death with a tire iron, I think, and then pleads. And then they try and get lawyers, and his brother, who was an ex-priest turned wrestler, ex-priest turned professional wrestler. Him and this priest, all his mates from the church that he used to belong to, all get involved. Lawyers get involved, and they pretty much attempt to set up a case in court, with the trial over his murder, to try and plead demonic possession, which is absolutely crazy. You might get off on being criminally insane or something like that, or you get a typical case of or like a textbook case of multiple personality disorder or something like that, but actually trying to plead demonic possession. And so this whole book, without going into any detail, as usual, because I don't do that. It's not about spoilers. I don't talk about the story a great deal because, it's more about, hopefully for whoever, 2.5 people that happen to watch this video might want to go out and read this book themselves, or people who've already read it and they just want to hear about some dickhead yarning on about it in a very, very vague sense. This whole book is it's basically like a legal thriller in ways. And for the size of it, took me a while to pick it up, put it down, get through it. But for the size of this book, it moves really quickly. Nice short chapters, one after the other. There isn't a lot of dull moments in this book. It's actually really excellent. It builds and it builds and it builds and it climaxes. And by the end, I won't say anything about the end. It was okay. It was all right. I personally thought it could have been a little bit better, but we're not going to go there. That's up to anybody, each to their own opinion. I personally thought that Son of Endless Night, after the whole case of the demonic possession, right through to the legal side of things, the court case and everything, it really was a thriller, and there's a lot of horror involved in it too. And you get very attached to the characters. I got really attached to the characters. It kind of, if you just bear with me for a moment, it kind of reminded me at times of, there's many stories that could remind you of, like any horror, but it kept reminding me of Legion by William Peter Blatty at times. Crazy dude locked up in a cell, priests and all, going in to visit him and finding out what the fuck's going on with this Gemini killer, But that's Legion by William Peter Blatty, the true sequel to The Exorcist, not the heretic film. Fuck. Anyways, Son of Endless Night, John Farris. All I can say is that I recommend this book. Yep. On a story meter, it's like an 8. I reckon. Good 8. On a horror meter, probably like a solid 7. And once again, definitely recommended Son of Endless Night by John Farris. Cool. Next, we got not so excited about this one. And I was excited about receiving these books. I got a couple of these. Linda Crockett Gray. She released a few books in the 80s. I've got a couple of hers out here. I could actually even try and maybe pull one out right now if I can see it. But, yes, I can. I was tossing up between Sirens or Tangerine. Both these books I think are fairly sought after. I think especially Tangerine. She's got a book called Scryer as well, I think, which is one of her more common ones. But I jumped in, I got Siren, and then I picked up Tangerine. I decided to read Siren first because with the general blurb of what the plot was on the back, it seemed pretty exciting. It's basically about a group of, let's say, vigilante women who happen to have like a sisterhood going on, and they can chant over the power of the candles, and in the distance somewhere is a siren coming from some kind of mythical beings on an island. I don't know. And what they do is they all come together, they join their forces, they bring their powers together from this old ancient oh God, lost for words. Sorry, old ancient, kind of entity or something like that happens to live miles and miles away that feeds them, and they practice. And what they do is they actually go out and pursue pedophiles and, child abusers and things like that. And this is where a lot of the story revolves around, is there is a lot of child abuse in it. Well, a lot, like a fair bit, enough, enough is enough when it comes to that kind of thing. So there is, it's very seedy, pretty raunchy at times, and that's probably the extent of the horror in this book, Linda Crockett Gray. I don't know much about her, to be honest, but this is from Tor Horror. And I know that Tor also did a lot of sci-fi fantasy stuff as well, and that, which is really cool. But anyways, that is basically the extent of the horror in this book, apart from them having their, let's say, accumulative power to then chase down and pursue, molesters, murderers, you know, child rapists, all of that. It's pretty nasty. So there's really, the bulk of the story is pretty gritty. It's pretty gritty in a realistic manner, like in a realistic kind of way. But the other thing about it too is there's a lot of romance in it. A lot of romance in it. I think the main chick, she's a swimming teacher. Her name's Chris, and she's got her little niece Sylvia or something. They meet this this cop. I think he's actually more of like a detective, and his name's Mike. And Mike gets into a romantic kind of relationship with Chris, the main chick, who she's, you know, her and Sylvia are obviously a part of this sisterhood of crew who are kind of like vigilantes. And so there's too much romance, too much smuttiness, too much seediness, I guess, and not really a lot of gripping, let's say, substance in there to actually keep you going, enjoying the story itself. I must be brutally honest. I don't know about Linda Crockett Gray's other books, but we'll find out. You know, I might read Tangerine at some point. I'm kind of intrigued by it. But this one here, Siren, Linda Crockett Gray, I'm just rambling away. Basically, on the horror meter, it's like, let's say for real life, it's probably a fucking 8 or a 9, you know, but in fictional horror, supernatural kind of realms, it's like a 3. And the story is like a 4 or a 5 maybe. I saw this review on this book, actually. It was quite funny. I think somebody said, it was on Goodreads, somebody said, how the heck do you manage to write, you know, like nearly 300 pages without a plot? And that person was quite spot on with this. Nearly 300 pages a book with fuck all plot. Not much to it, you know. It's kind of just like some dramatized romance with, you know, horrible people who are, you know, who those are seeking vengeance out on. And the vengeance isn't even that great, you know. It's like, okay, yeah, if it's a whole book set up around people who go and find pedophiles and stuff and just fuck them up, like, great, that'd be cool, I'd enjoy that. But this isn't even quite that, like, they don't quite get there. Yeah, pardon me. So anyways, Siren by Linda Crockett Gray, recommended? Honestly, no, sorry. Moving on. We'll find out with Tangerine one day, maybe. Now, last book I'm going to talk about, and I was, you know, excited about this kind of stuff, is that I've talked about this one briefly before in the video, but once again, like I keep saying, I'm going to get rid of those videos very soon. The Neophyte by Guyan Smith. And Guyan Smith is the fucking man. I love this guy. I talked about The Sucking Pit by Guyan Smith, which is one of his earlier ones. It's actually set in, I think it's Hot Was Wood, which I think is a real place where Guyan Smith actually happens to dwell. I think he was born there, he was raised there, he wrote a lot of his books there. And Hot Was Wood, which is in England, I believe, somewhere. After reading The Sucking Pit and knowing about all the Crabs novels and all of that, knowing that he's very, very prolific, you know, he's a very productive man in the 80s and the 90s and things, and all his books look so damn cool, you know. I read The Sucking Pit and I thought, man, that was great. Relentless. It's like maybe, it's not even 200 pages. You just smash through the thing and it just constantly goes and goes and goes, and it's got everything to it. It's got violence, it's got sex, it's got horror, you know, humor. So I went, boom, jumped onto the Neophyte. And the reason why I jumped onto the Neophyte out of the fucking 12 or 15 Guyan Smith books that I own, the reason why I jumped onto this one, as I previously mentioned once, was this happened to be, when I was young, the first actual horror paperback I ever saw, before I'd even seen any Stephen King or anything like that. I remember looking through, I was hanging out in, looking for something in my uncle's shed or whatever when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and this book popped up and I went, holy fuck, like, what's this, you know? And, you know, it says like, you know, blood cursed, the power of death ran through their veins, and it's like, awesome, you know, that sounds crazy. All these years later, when I started to become, you know, quite a fanatic reader of, you know, such a specific, you know, market, I guess, being, you know, 70s and horror, 70s horror, 80s horror, all of that. All right, I got the Neophyte. Turns out it's by Guy Smith. Cool. That was a surprise. And I read it. And I just finished it the other day. And this is cool, man. This is a cool book. It's pretty cool. Like, I think like Guy Smith's going into a little bit more depth in this than what he would with any of the Crabs books, or even like the Sucking Pit or something like that, or like the Slime Beast, whatever. This book it's based in a place called Hope Wood, which is probably similar to Hot Was Wood, I guess. He's just basing something off of the place where he's written a lot of his books. Shut up. My fucking fellow dog is barking out there. Shut up! Hey! Anyways, based in Hope Wood, young boy named Joby Tarrant. His mother, Hilda Tarrant, is a witch. She's horrible. There's a lot of supernatural flow going through the town of Hope. And Joby's mum, along with a few others, are kind of the real centerpieces of that. And Joby's mother torments him as a young kid, you know, because she's just this horrible, cold-hearted witch lady, practitioner lady. And it really messes with Joby, but he's inherited a lot of her, let's say, inner spiritual strength, and he happens to hold, you know, inner spiritual strength himself. And, sorry, hilarious to me anyway. And, but you know, he's a tormented young dude. And he finds himself, hang on a second, I'm just going to pause. Oh, where were we? We're rolling again. Sorry, had to pause it, run out there and deal with the dog. What was I saying? In the Neophyte, young Joby basically just finds himself growing up in this small, you know, town of Hope Village, basically being indoctrinated into the ways of evil by his very feared witch mother, Hilda. And Hilda, actually, the prologue to this book is really cool because Hilda sets a curse on Joby's father, Arthur, I believe his name was, in the very beginning, because Arthur sleeps with one of the other women in the town. She finds out about it, and she sets a curse on him. And the book basically opens up with Arthur going to work. He's herding cattle, and he gets gored to death by a bull. That was pretty awesome, you know. And so basically, Joby's, you know, grows up. He doesn't have a dad. He knows his mum's evil. Mum actually set a curse on dad, and she's always just pounding it into his brain that, like, you know, he's got to, you know, look out for himself. He's got to, you know, just basically fall down at, you know, on his knees to his mother's power and obey her in, you know, all sense of, you know, I guess being a son to a mother, but in a different case here. So what happens is Joby's this tormented young little boy, and everybody calls him Witch Boy. He happens to hold some of this, I guess, malignant power or whatever that is slowly brewing in him because of his mother. And there's another chick in the village, another young girl named Sally Ann. And Sally Ann also holds similar kind of, let's say, abilities that Joby does, but she's far more malicious in her intent with them. And she likes to come along and try and arouse Joby and just play with his mind a lot and try and use him because she knows what he holds and she knows what she holds, and she wants to try and use it to her own benefit. What actually happens is, it turns out that, I'm cutting everything way short here, it turns out that Joby's mother, Hilda, when she killed Joby's father for finding out that he had an affair, it is later revealed that Arthur Tarrant, Joby's father, had an affair with Sally Ann's mother. And so they're actually kind of, so Sally Ann is Arthur Tarrant's illegitimate daughter. And so they're actually related, incest in small towns. But they end up like fucking and stuff and hanging out and running away from Hopewood and all of that. A lot of bizarre stuff goes down, especially with Sally Ann. You know, like she's not a very nice young girl. You know, she's very alluring and, you know, very evil in her ways. You know, and she's very bad intent towards anybody. And she just keeps hanging on to Joby because she knows that Joby's going to be powerful and she can use him. And she can't live without him. You know, their powers need to be, I guess, unified with one another in order for her to be able to continue prospering in her dark ways. And so basically what the story does is it boils down to poor young Joby having to, you know, come of age and come as a man and, you know, essentially just beef up and take on the evil that's going on in this town, from his mother to Sally Ann to the dark forces that linger in Hopewood. In Hope Village, Hopewood and Hopwellswood from the other book. You know, I'm probably not being very clear with the story here. I'm just rambling away, and plus I got disconnected by having to tend to other things. But The Neophyte by Guyan Smith. This is cool. This is a good story. On the horror meter, it's probably like a 7.5 even. On the story meter, it's probably about the same. It's about a 7. And yeah, I do recommend it. Sorry for being so vague. I'm never very good with descriptions when it comes to books. So if anyone happens to watch this, they think, do you even read, man? Like, do you even know how to talk? Do you even know how to construct a sentence? Can you even put your socks on in the morning? I mean, I can, but, you know, right now I'm trying to talk like a douchebag, you know. I can to a degree, but not really. I just talk like a douchebag because I am a douchebag. But I can't talk about it in like a more literary, academic kind of sense, you know. But that's okay. The Neophyte by Guyan Smith. Yes, recommended. Cool book. Just the same as The Sucking Pit was. I've got heaps of Guyan Smith. I'm even thinking that I might even just continue to read a lot of Guyan Smith over time, and even one day I'll just do a video just focusing on a handful of Guyan Smith books alone. Anyways, cheers for stopping by. If you did, it's the Wolf signing out. Until next time.